Well, hello, creative world changers. I believe you are unique and creative to manifest joy, love, and creative solutions for yourself, your family, your community, your world, and beyond. I will be interviewing creative world changers to share their stories about how they are impacting the world. But we want you to be inspired. I create, you create, we create for good. My name is Jane Cook. Welcome to IUE for Good podcast. Hi, welcome everyone to the IUE for Good Creative World Changers podcast. And I am actually so excited to have Danielle Boggs with us today. I just met her just the other day at her beautiful Overflow Cakery. What would you, Cakery? Yeah, cupcakes and galore, the most unusual, beautiful things you've ever seen. You're going to have to go and look at them. And her address, I believe, is, help me out, Danielle, 108. Is that right?
Yeah, 108 North Lincoln Street over in Deloge.
In Deloge. So that is the strip. If you're not familiar with Deloge, that is the strip right there by the railroad track before you go across it up to the, is it the fourth? Yeah, I've forgotten. Third and fourth grade center, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'm so excited to get to talk to you again and to see you again.
Yes.
We have lots of things in the works, but we better start at the beginning so our listeners can get clued in. So this is Danielle Boggs, and the reason that I have this podcast is for about giving creative people an opportunity to share what they're doing to help change the world for good. And Danielle is one of those creative people, and she's going to be sharing with you today what problem or passion that she discovered, that she wanted to find a creative solution for it, and then what she actually did creatively for good to help solve that problem. So let's just start at that point on how are you using your creativity for good, and tell us about what Overflow Cakery has to do with that and how that all came about.
Yeah. So back in 2009, I was baby Christian. So I wanted to know what my purpose was. And I continued to ask God and like every day, come on, God, what do you need me to do? What did you create me to do? And one day I was sitting on the couch and I'm telling you what, I heard God say, dig a well with cake. And I'm an argumentative person.
Okay,
So I
got
was
a shovel?
in all your infinite wisdom, I'm just going to let you know cake doesn't work that way. And I instantly got back with me, all things are possible. I was like, okay. So I started just doing little cakes, here and there. And then I decided to go my own way. And so I went through a really big rough patch, and then I started praying, and I was like, God, something's got to change, and I need to know what to do from here because this is a mess. And I had actually contemplated suicide, and I had told God, you got 2 weeks to give me a purpose and a reason because I'm tired, and I couldn't have kids at that time, or I thought I couldn't have kids at that time. And I just lost my husband, and someone stole my car, and I literally had nothing. And so I was driving over a bridge that I take all the time. And I was like, okay, God, you got 2 weeks. And the next time I drive over this bridge, I'm just driving off. And exactly 2 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And so then God started really shaking things and like, okay, we need to get back on track because you tried it your way and obviously that did not work. And so all the things that I had allowed Satan to steal from me, I thought I had let him steal my purpose too. And so all the things started shaking into place, and God doubled my portion that I had allowed Satan to steal from me. So then I got a house and a new husband and 2 vehicles and 2 children instead of just the one I had been praying for.
Wow.
And so then it was like, okay, I'm back on track. Okay, now what? Because I know you spoke this to me, but does it still carry on since I'm not in that same situation anymore? And he showed me that, well, this time you have a husband that's extremely supportive of you following your convictions, whether he's saved or not, because my husband's not. So for him to be very, I want you to follow what your God tells you to do. So just little things like that started to fall into place. And I told him about, what God had told me and the passion I had for it. But I was more confused, like digging wells with cake. I'm not sure where to go with that. And I asked God to open my eyes so I could see what he wanted me to do. And all of a sudden, these children from Uganda kept popping up on my phone. They kept popping up on my TV, and people would come and visit me at my work that dug wells. And I'm like, this is so strange, but I hear you. I just don't know how to get to that point. And so I started doing more business wise with cake and putting my stuff online and stuff like that. And sorry, I say this is the quietest place on my whole property. It's not very quiet.
You're fine. We can hear you just fine.
So we started to really look into a bakery. So I was like, well, if I'm going to dig wells with cake, I'm going to need somewhere to sell the cake, and probably not just offline little auctions. So I started 2 years before we opened the shop. I started praying for Lincoln Street. And I prayed for a specific building, but I was really I didn't realize it. I was just praying for the street, not that building that I thought I needed so desperately. And I went to go get my loan for the business loan, and I was telling them about the whole vision and everything and what God had spoke to me. And all of a sudden across the building, I hear, "You ready to get goosebumps?" And I'm like, yeah, all the time. Those are my favorite. And she's like, "I just spoke to somebody about you specifically, and he gave me his number to give to you, and he wants you to contact him so that he can design the building for you on the inside, customize everything to fit what you need." Oh. And these people, they pay my water. They're beautiful people. Like one of them is Chelsea, so she's going to be speaking at the benefit too.
Oh, that's so great.
Things just started lining up perfectly. And so now we're working on this one specific one in Bakuba, Uganda, and we're lacking only like 6,500, which really isn't that bad.
Awesome. Hey, before we start talking about that, I want you to share all about that upcoming benefit. But before we start on that, explain to our listeners. So you opened the Overflow Cakery. So how does it actually work that you're digging wells with your cakes? Explain a little bit specifically how that's worked and what you've been able to do with it.
So the Overflow was not my choice. That was God names everything that I have. I don't know. I like to name everything. And I had come up with all these names, and I was like, "God, what do you want to name it?" And he's like, "The Overflow." I was like, "What's that have to do with cake?" Well, there's a scripture and it's First Thessalonians 3:12, and it talks about um, may everybody, the love that we provide for people overflow into their lives and then overflow into others. So it's a continuous overflow of cake and Christ and love and water and all the things that people need in life. So I'm really excited to be a part of something like that, to where I'm not giving money to people that can ever repay me, ever. I will probably never meet these people, but it's the weirdest thing. God has made me love these people like they're my family. And it's because they're going to be my family, because we're going to provide a well for them. And then Jesus is going to meet the women at the well like he did in the Bible.
Oh, yes.
I'm super excited.
Yes. So the money that you sell your cakes for, the profit goes to a particular organization to dig the wells.
Yeah.
Right?
So we go through Hope for Every Heart. It's a very, very small little bitty ministry. And Stephen Gashumba is the one. I stay in contact with him. We have little conversations like this, and he keeps me updated on all the things that they need, how far we are coming with all of this, and his constant, oh, Daniela.
Oh, so did you have any connection, or had you ever thought about people in other countries who do not have clean water? Or was that just completely just a thought that God dropped into your, or the plan that God dropped into your heart, and then you researched it and became connected with it? Or did you have any inkling that you had this desire to help people to have clean water?
So it was funny. I thought that it was just like a random thing that God chose for me to do. But I told my mom about it, and she started thinking about when I was a baby. And when I was, about 5 to 10, every time those kind of commercials I'd bawl. I'm emotional anyways, but I would bawl hysterically because I thought it was such an injustice that I had those things and they didn't. And remember back when the TVs were giant boxes, and my grandma's her TV had a thing in it where you could name the channels. And when I was little, I didn't know it, but when I was little, apparently I went through and named every channel Cake. So I guess that's always been ingrained in me, and I just didn't know it until God opened my eyes to see it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh,
that is
they all connect.
Absolutely beautiful and awesome. That how much God knows us. He knows us better than we know ourselves, doesn't he?
Yes.
He put that, I can see that justice spirit that he's put in you, that you want to make things right. You want to be a part of bringing the world into balance, because you've probably seen those pictures where the little children and the moms are having to get water from really nasty places.
Yes. And then when you look
into do it.
Right. And like when you look into what happens when they don't get the water, that is what really disturbed me, because some women get beat. Kids get hurt along the way. Like if mom is sick from drinking nasty water, then guess who has to go get that water? Her babies. And so the babies are walking miles and miles to get water. Some of them get snatched up and sold into sex trafficking, or they drown in the borehole, or just all sorts of things. Get eaten by wild animals. The list of things that can happen on that trip are so intense. And then not just that, but we don't understand that those women don't have sanitary products either. So when they're walking all that way, Mother Nature is taking its course at the same time. You're lugging your kids. It's hot. You got a big old thing of nasty water on your head. That's not going to help your family. It's for just get by, hopefully, until help comes. And that's what we are. We're supposed to be the hands and feet of Christ. And if we're not acting like that, then people are hurting and they're waiting on us.
Yes.
And I think that's what bothers me the most is I'll look around at the stuff that I have and I'm like, ooh, did I really deserve that? Or, was that really necessary? Was that something that money that I could have spent elsewhere? And, we shouldn't feel bad about having luxuries because God put us in this place so we could share all of our blessings.
Yes, exactly.
But when we don't share it, people are hurting because of that. And I understand that these are people over in other countries, but that doesn't make them any less of children of God. They're still our brothers and sisters. So, yeah, if you would supply something simple as water for your own family, but you wouldn't for somebody else.
Yes.
That's kind of where
and there's plenty of water, isn't there? It's just a matter of getting it to the surface, and it can just change the whole entire village. If they're not having to walk miles and miles, and children can go to school, and they're not getting dysentery and dying, before their time,
and the women
all the
will
other
have
diseases.
Yeah, and the women will have more time to do their own businesses or get out of bad situations that they were given to. Because from the research I've done, and I could be wrong, but they get married off pretty early and they don't have a choice in who they're marrying, or it's basically the richest dude around. If he's attracted to you, that's who you're going to. And for one, that's just lunacy. But for two, could you imagine being that woman in the situation and she's had all these kids with them and he takes off and you're stuck with all those kids in the middle of the jungle or the desert, wherever you are in Africa, and can't even supply water. The inadequacy that I would feel as a mom would be heartbreaking in itself. Not being able to supply my child with bare necessities I would be heartbreaking. And I think with the banquet, we're going to be empowering each other, but at the same time, the money that comes from that will be empowering other women to start their own journey, get out of bad situations, provide schooling for their children. It's going to be a way out for a lot of women.
Danielle, back up to that. Let's share with the audience. I'll try to get this up on the podcast right away. But Danielle has a big event coming October 2nd, which is a great way for you to invest with her and to sow seed into her ministry. So I would like for you to share the specifics of that, if you can, or if you have them. And I think people would love to hear what you're doing and connect with you and support you.
Yeah. So 100% of all of our profit goes to dig wells. So we're not doing this to line our own pockets. I have one paid employee and she comes maybe 4 hours a week, and me and my best friend who God, he lines up those friendships for you and the help that you need with the same heart. So my best friend and we run this whole thing. And so the benefit will be to provide the rest of the money for this well. And I also want to, in turn, since we're going to be empowering those women, I think it's important for us to empower each other and encourage each other to do all the things that God has for us to do and to not be fearful of taking the leaps that you're going to have to take to pursue that. Like whatever God put on your heart, you're going to have to take some risks, and it's going to be a little nerve-wracking, but I think that those are the moments when God's really stretching out your faith and working out your faith and your relationship with him. Because once you go into your own business, it's such a unsteady ground sometimes that all you can do is rely on God. And I think I'm just blessed to have the bakery because it's helped so much with my relationship with Jesus that I'm constantly like, oh, Holy Spirit, will you please just calm my insides? Like those little moments that you have with the Holy Spirit to like, okay, it's going to be okay. He already knew this was going to happen. Help is on the way and it's going to be fine. But the benefit, I think, is something that our community needs too. When I got into this, I noticed that there was a lot of competition, I guess, and like ripping each other apart. The hurtful things that people can say that maybe feel like you're competition for them, when really we need to encourage each other. Girl, I'm rooting you on all day. I want you to succeed in what God put in your heart, even if it looks similar to mine. We have two very different purposes. So to support each other in our own community and to know there are women here for you that love you and want the best for you and will encourage you and be a good friend to you. I think that we've kind of lost the idea of what a friendship actually looks like through all of this separation stuff. So, and leaning on each other. Like I really needed somebody.
Let's go ahead and tell them, let's go ahead and announce the date and everything, so that people can kind of get it on their calendar and be thinking about how they might be able to come or how they might be able to participate. Let's go ahead and share that if you're able.
I am super excited because so, as a woman, you can't just walk into a bar. I have no intention of going into a bar, but the dancing part is what I miss. And you can't just go dance anywhere, as a female without handsiness. And so I wanted an opportunity to where we could all get together and encourage each other, but still have a really fun, laid back night that us mamas really need. And so that's October 2nd. There's just like an outrageous amount of boutiques and salons and stuff that are donating to this. So we have like door prizes, and then we'll have your books and your art and stuff. There's so many other women that are wanting this because they are lacking that emotional support from each other. So that was the whole purpose of it. We're just it's at the Lincoln Street Event Center, which is like 2 doors down from my shop in Deloge. We're kind of still deciding on what kind of food we're going to eat, but so you're going to get there and we're going to eat and have our speakers. And then for the rest of the night, we're just going to be free to be ourselves and be silly and dance and take crazy photos. And we'll have the silent auction too. And then the door prizes will be handed out throughout. And then we're going to have desserts and stuff so we can all junk out, veg out too.
I hope some of your cake.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we got to have a cake.
Gotta have some cupcakes.
Kind of the whole point. But I'm really excited about it. I'm ready to spend some time with my girls. I'm ready to relax for a second. I feel like my insides have just been so tight and crazy for the last like year and a half that I need an outlet to just be for a second. And I want that for for all of our girls in St. Francis County or wherever. You can come wherever. I don't care where you come from.
Come
But we're
and
gonna
have some fun and breathe and laugh and buy some cool gifts and
and to know like
food and some good dessert and just be encouraged. Your speakers that you're lining up are there to encourage the women who are coming. And all the proceeds go for digging that well. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that well's going to be dug. Tell them again how much it costs to dig this well.
So a whole well is $10,000, and it depends on where you're going to, because if you have to go further out to where nobody can get, they have to also make roads to get the rig there to dig the well. So it's a little bit more expensive depending on where you go, but I haven't seen it go over like 15-ish, but this specific one is 10,000. We're down to only needing 6,500. My goal is to have it by Christmas so that they can have this by Christmas.
Super.
We go through Hope for Every Heart, and it was weird because at first I wasn't going through this specific ministry, and I was praying about it. I'm like, God, I want to make sure that this money's just not going to line somebody's pocket, because you can send that money anywhere and you don't know what they're doing with it. But I was like, God, line me up with some people. And he lined me up with the river over in it's the old Flat River movie theater.
Yes.
And so it was like the second time I was there, I was sitting there and all this, I'm like reading all of the comments on there, because you want to check out a church if you're going to be attending and see where their heart is, make sure it lines up with God's heart. And Wells for Uganda popped up. And I was like, God, you are so funny.
He
like,
is, he knows you.
That's where I met them through DJ and Rose Edwards. They lined me up with Stephen Gashumba. And so him and I have been real tight. And he sends me pictures, and they don't just do wells. Through that company, they will buy houses. They've bought whole houses. They've gotten women out of some terrible situations, bought them a whole store so that they would be able to supply for their family by themselves.
Yeah.
So I love their heart.
Yeah. That's so good. So wonderful. So we've shared a little bit about how others can help and support you, especially with the benefit coming up. That's going to be really fun. Would you like to say one last word of encouragement? I know it's in your heart and you shared a little bit, but would you like to share anything else specifically speaking to women who are listening today to encourage them to follow that dream or that vision that God's put in their heart? What would you say to encourage them to do so?
Pray on it and then just do it, because God's already lined out. He already knows your next step. So if he already knows, then he's gone ahead of you so far into your future that things are going to work out, and they're not going to look how you think that they're going to look. And you don't know what the little seeds that you're planting are growing into. So even if you're like stay-at-home moms, I feel like stay-at-home moms do not get the credit that they need, because you don't know what your little tiny human's going to do. And that's your seed. You don't know if your little tiny human is going to go out there and get the entire dang world saved.
Yes.
And you raised them, mama. Like, that is a big deal to raise little disciples. And it's a full-time job. So if it's staying at home and raising tiny humans, or if it's going out and digging wells with Cake, things that seem so impossible are always possible with God. And he's always going to do it in the most creative way. How he has taken this bakery and ministered to my heart, but to everybody else that comes in, he brings people to you. So I always like to encourage people and say, where you're planted right now is where you're supposed to be right now. So even if it doesn't look like you're getting far or doing some great thing, you don't have to dig wells in Uganda. You can raise a tiny human, and that tiny human is gonna travel to Uganda, and there will never be poverty there again. Like,
Yes, we don't know, do we? Well,
yeah,
Danielle, I
we never
love,
know.
love, love hearing your story. It is crazy amazing, and God is so good, and He's created such a beautiful, grown up, a little human as yourself, beautiful woman who's raising little humans. And I just love your story, and I cannot wait for the benefit. I think it's going to be wonderful. And I'm sure people are wondering, how do you like for them to connect with you? Do you have Facebook you want to share, email you want to share, anything, any way for our listeners to connect with you, especially if they're not local and they want to connect?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, you can come into the shop. That would be great to see your face. But also, the overflow at gmail.com, the overflow cakery at gmail.com. That's my email for that. I tried to keep everything the same name so you'd know.
Mhm.
But that way, you can call me, um, contact me through Facebook.
Okay, so
Um,
do you have a specific Facebook page then for Overflow
yes,
Cakery?
yes,
Okay,
it's just the overflow cakery.
perfect.
Um, and it's this cute little vintage cupcake.
Okay.
So that's the icon.
Okay,
But
that is just perfect. Okay, to close out this amazing, beautiful interview with you, what's your favorite? I always ask everybody what their favorite quote, scripture, or inspirational saying that you'd like to close with.
um, I don't really have. I love all of God's words,
I
so it's
know
hard
there's
to
so many.
choose. But
Just whatever comes to
anything
mind.
about anything about not focusing on the things that you're seeing in the world around you, but focusing on having a heavenly mind
Perfect.
on earth. It's hard, but that's where we're supposed to focus. And that's if we look at things in a heavenly manner, then we're more likely to do heavenly things here on earth, or to bring heaven to earth, a little piece of it at least. And helping each other is the biggest part of it, I feel.
Yes, I do too. Well, I love talking to you today, and I know our listeners are going to just fall in love with you, Danielle. And we cannot wait. I cannot wait to see what else God is going to do in you and through you, and already have. Sure that God has amazing, amazing plans for you. You're young, you're vivacious and energetic, and you just don't even know what's around the corner, do you?
I got one of those young and dangerous hearts.
Oh, yes. Well, I love you. Thanks so much for agreeing to
Thank
share with us today. I
you.
appreciate it, Danielle.
Yeah, it was nice seeing you.
Okay, bye.